Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself. Oh, and if you don't mind, like, subscribe, comment. And I've got a link tree down below that's got my social media, and it has my Patreon if you want to help out. Thank y'all. Folks, the Marine Corps birthday is today, and I'm going to celebrate this momentous day of my beloved Marine Corps. It is especially momentous with former Marine Corporal J.D. Vance being the highest elected official ever from the Marine Corps. He is the Vice President of the United States. Highest elected office any Marine has ever held. Holy cow. No matter your politics, Teufelhundens, this is something to celebrate. At least I do. Okay, so we're going to discuss the Battle of Alcatraz. Little known moment in history. Yes, there were several escape attempts from Alcatraz, but in 1946, they needed to call in the Marine Corps to help squash it. It was under the command of two Army officers, and it also showed why the Marine Corps was necessary because of how we can be called up versus how the other branches can be called up. That kept getting forgotten by President Truman. So, brothers and sisters, Semper Fi, happy birthday, and enjoy a little bit of slice of our history. Before we get into the Battle of Alcatraz, we're going to first look into what was happening in the U.S. The president was Harry Truman. He hated the Marine Corps, was listening to General Curtis LeMay of the Air Force on how the military should focus only on nuclear weapons, and was cutting the military budget while there were thousands of troops all over the world. All of this would come to haunt him when Korean War started. General Alexander Vandergrift was the commandant of our beloved Corps, and he was fighting to save the Corps. He would have to go to Congress. In this time around, he would have to go to Congress to save our beloved Corps. It was known as the bent knee or bended knee speech. Here's part of it. He said to Congress, "The Marine Corps then believes that it has earned this right to have its future decided by the legislative body which created it, nothing more. Sentiment is not a valid consideration in determining questions of national security. We have pride in ourselves and in our past, but we do not rest our case on any presumed ground of gratitude owing us from the nation. The bended knee is not a tradition of our Corps. If the Marine as a fighting man has not made a case for himself after 170 years of service, he must go. But I think you will agree with me that he has earned the right to depart with dignity and honor, not by subjugation to the status of uselessness and servility planned for him by the War Department." That was what General Vandergrift said. He was an amazing commandant, led our troops on Guadalcanal. Truman received the call from Bureau of Prisons. Needed help from the military. He found that the only branch that he had legal authority to do this with was the Corps. He may not have been happy with this, but he did end up having to send in combat veterans from the beloved Corps. He also had to call up the Coast Guard, but they're a different case. During times of war, they're Department of Defense. During other times, they are something separate. I think at the time they were Department of Interior. He wouldn't stop trying to destroy the Corps, though. Lost a fight in 1950, though, when he went up against Commandant Clifton Cates and his own bad choice of words. Let me read to you a letter that was the bad choice of words. "My dear Congressman McDonough, I read with a lot of interest your letter in regard to the Marine Corps. For your information, the Marine Corps is the Navy's police force, and as long as I am president, that is what it will remain. They have a propaganda machine that is almost equal to Stalin's. Nobody desires to belittle the efforts of the Marine Corps, but when the Marine Corps goes into the Army, it works with and for the Army, and that is the way it should be. I am more than happy to have your expression of interest in this naval military organization. The Chief of Naval Operations is a Chief of Staff of the Navy, of which the Marines are part. The likening the Marine Corps and how they dealt with everything to Stalin's, yeah, it kind of backfired on him, and that literally saved the Corps because he had gotten frustrated with the fight over the Marine Corps and with how Commandant Cates and before him Commandant Vandergrift had fought so valiantly to save our beloved Corps. But let's get into the battle. Now, Alcatraz was the place where the worst of the worst were sent. Those that had attempted escape several times, those that were exceedingly violent, and people that were dangerous just because of who they were, such as Al Capone. One of these was a bank robber named Bernard Coy, sorry. I'm used to everything saying McCoy, especially because this man's from Kentucky. When I was looking that up, so that kind of stuck in my head. But Bernard Coy decided he wanted to escape the island, so he enlisted Marvin Hubbard, Joseph Kretzer, Sam Shockley, Marin Thompson, and Clarence Carnes to help him. They were all extremely dangerous and would prove it on May 2nd, 1946. They'd worked together to get firearms. One of the prisoners scaled a wall to get to where the firearms were because the guards didn't normally have firearms on them. And they would end up taking prisoner 9 unarmed guards and threw them into cells. But one of the guards by the name of Miller frustrated them because they would be searching through the keys and they couldn't find it. Because Miller, when they got it thrown into the cell, he tossed it into the toilet so that they couldn't find it. Brave man. The alarm was sounded, and the authorities called Truman to get assistance of the military. The Marine Corps area was mobilized, and reminiscent of the Marine raiders on Guadalcanal, the Coasties, okay, most people don't know this fact. Marine raiders during Guadalcanal that were there, when they had to be transported to other parts of the island to do reconnaissance, the Coasties were there, not the Navy. The Coasties were there, Coast Guard. And they had these YP boats that were named the Yippies. Well, the Coast Guard would be transporting the Marines again into action. This time it would be Alcatraz. While there was a Marine warrant officer that would be in command of the Marines directly, they were also put under the command of Army General Vinegar Joe Stilwell and Frank Merrill. Stillwell had been Chief of Staff to Chiang Kai-shek during World War II, and he had also been in charge of the Allied forces in the Chinese area. He ultimately had 2 commanding officers. One was Chiang Kai-shek, and the other was a British officer, and I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. But Merrill was the commanding officer of Merrill's Marauders. It was a special forces asymmetric warfare unit that was under Stilwell's command and did a lot of damage in Burma against the Japanese. Merrill's Marauders is an interesting unit. You should look them up. But both these were Army officers. The prisoners, realizing that they couldn't find the correct key to get out of there, started firing on the watchtowers, and they also fired on the guards that they had taken prisoners. Prisoner. Miller would lose his life. So his fellow guards knew what kind of brave man he was by hiding that key. And they would live to tell this. Some of them would, or all of them would tell the story. But yeah, Miller would lose his life. Marines with the guards that were on the island would assault the positions and the assault would be done with automatic weapons and hand grenades. 14 guards would end up getting injured, and a correctional officer by the name of Harold Stites lost his life. Siege and the battle would last 48 hours, with it ending on May 4th when the Marines would make the final assault into a tower that the final prisoners were at. They had stupidly put themselves into a tower that they couldn't get out of, and they barricaded themselves in. After all was said and done, Croy, Kretzer, and Hubbard would die in the battle. Thompson and Shockley would go to the gas chamber. Carnes, who actually attempted to stop the killing of the guards, would have 99 years added to his sentence. So, I'm going to have a Substack, or I've got my Substack going, and I'm going to post a link to the Substack down below. So if you want to look at the sources, learn more about all of this, you can. I've got links in the Substack article. I've got part of this written down in the article. But to my fellow jarheads, happy birthday, men and women. My brothers and sisters, we have yet another birthday that we can celebrate. Um, like I said earlier, J.D. Vance, Vice President, highest ranked Marine ever. While, yes, it's a civilian rank and it is an elected position, he's still going to be called Sir by a whole bunch of people, and he had been a corporal in our beloved Corps. But, happy birthday and Semper Fi. Everybody have a good day. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Bye now.
Folks, I just want to say thank you for listening. I want to thank you for taking your time. I want to hear what your comments are about what you think on this topic, because your comments are what's important, not necessarily mine. I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're conservative, I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're Democrat. I want to hear your opinion on these topics. I want to thank you yet again for listening to my video. Like, subscribe, and all that other hoopla. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.